Hey guys, this is Food by Faith and welcome to my kitchen. Today we are going to make two dishes. The first one is going to be a focaccia with herbs. I'm getting the recipe from one of my favorite Italian chefs. While I was in Italy, you guys know that I took quite a few cooking classes there. And one of the guys that I took cooking classes with, his name was Lucas Migliarelli. And he does Cooking with Lucas on Facebook. He travels all over, but his home base is right there in Italy. And he wrote a cookbook, and I was too excited to make sure I supported him. So we are going to take a recipe from his cookbook. We are going to make that, as well as we are going to make a chicken and rice soup today. I had roasted some chicken and I had a little bit of the meat left over as well as the carcass. So I want to take that with some vegetables that I froze from my garden, and we are going to make a chicken and rice soup. So stay with me and let's get cooking. All right, guys, we are starting with our focaccia, our herb focaccia. So what we have here is going to be 3 cups of flour, 1 cup of warm water, 1/4 of a cup of olive oil. We have a tablespoon of sugar, a tablespoon of salt. We're going to, it calls for a pinch of rock salt, but what we are going to use is coarse kosher salt. You can either use a cube of fresh yeast, or right here I have a tablespoon of dry yeast. Make sure your yeast is healthy. So I buy a container of it and I keep it in the refrigerator. And then we're going to preheat our oven to 350 degrees. Ugh, I can't speak today. Also, already have your pan prepared. So this is the pan that we are going to make our focaccia in. I have it rubbed down with olive oil. And so we have that already. So what we are going to start off doing is we are going to dissolve our yeast, our fresh yeast, with the sugar. So we have our tablespoon of sugar. We have our yeast. We have our wooden spoon. We're going to just kind of stir those in together. And then we're going to add our warm water. Guys, you want your water to be warm but not hot. You can smell that yeast. You're going to stir it up just a little. And what we're doing is called allowing your yeast to bloom. Okay. So once our yeast blooms, sorry about the pauses, guys. Once our yeast blooms, what we are going to do is we're going to add 1.5. We're going to add a half of our flour. So we have 3 cups of flour. We're going to add a half of that flour. We're going to add some of our salt, and we're going to stir that up. Once we stir that up, then what we are going to do is we're going to add the other half of the flour, and then we are going to knead the focaccia dough for about 2 minutes. And what you're going to do is, instead of adding flour to your hands, you're going to add olive oil to your hands. And you're going to knead your flour, your focaccia, with the olive oil on your hands. You're going to do that for 2 minutes, and then we're going to place it in our pan. So we're going to let our yeast bloom for maybe about a minute. And while that's blooming, I'm going to tell you about the ingredients that we're going to use for our chicken and rice soup. So for our chicken and rice soup, like I told you, I had some a chicken carcass that I roasted and I had it left over. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick all the rest of the meat off of this bone, and it has a good amount of meat still left on it. So we're going to pick the rest of the meat off of this bone. I have here some potatoes, some corn, some green onions, some zucchini. I have 3 cups of water. I have a half tablespoon. You can use a half tablespoon to a tablespoon of my better than bouillon. And of course, you guys know how I feel about using that. I absolutely love using the better than bouillon, but I always start with less. And then as I taste my product, then you can add more, because remember, you can add, but you can't take away. And then for my rice, what you can do is you can add already cooked rice that you have in your refrigerator. In this recipe, it is kind of makeshift. So what you're doing is you're using what you already have at home. We don't want to go out and purchase anything to make this soup. This is what you already have. So if you don't have chicken left over, maybe you have turkey left over, you can use this with that as well. If you have duck left over, any type of poultry that you have left over, that's what you can use this recipe for. You can adjust your vegetables to whatever you have either in your freezer or in your garden. And then I have a packet of like a rice mix, a risotto mix. And it has seasonings on the inside as well as the rice. And so I'm going to use that in my chicken and rice soup. So again, those ingredients are the leftover roasted chicken, 3 cups of water. I have a montage of vegetables that I have here. Again, you can add as many or as little as you would like. I have a half tablespoon, of better than bouillon, and then I'm going to use the rice mix. So again, there are so many different rice mixes that they have at the store. I'm only using a rice mix today because I do not have any more cooked rice in the refrigerator. That'll be one of the things that I prep for today. I should have did it yesterday, but yesterday was a crazy day, as you guys saw my cleanup video from the wind, as well as my big pantry haul from the grocery store. I went to my favorite stores yesterday, Sam's, Lidl, and Kroger. And of course, you know that Grown with Hudson, if you watch her channel, please watch her channel. She's always telling us about the different savings and sales that Kroger is having. And I love to come to you and tell you about the savings that Lidl is having. And they both were having great sales yesterday. So I was able to get a lot of my different butters and things on sale from them yesterday. So I didn't get to prep any rice, but I'll do that today and place it in the refrigerator. So this is what we are doing for our soup, and we're going to cook that in our Pampered Chef quick cooker. You guys know that that is my favorite tool outside of my wok and my cast iron skillet to use in the kitchen. So our yeast should be well bloomed, and we're going to get back to making our focaccia. So here's what the yeast looks like, and now that it has bloomed. And what we're going to do is we're going to add a half of our flour into the bowl, and we're going to mix using our wooden spoon. Then we're going to add our salt, and we're going to mix that, for about a minute or so with our wooden spoon. And then we're going to add the rest of our flour. And once we add the rest of our flour, after we stir that in, we're going to knead our focaccia dough for about 2 minutes. And before we begin the kneading process, we're going to make sure we put a little olive oil on our hands, okay? So here we are. We're adding half of our flour. We're going to stir that in. Y'all, I love the smell of yeast breads. So now we're going to add our tablespoon of salt. And now we're going to add the rest of our flour. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my pan over. That was me preheating the oven because I'm going to proof our dough inside of the oven. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour our mixture onto the counter. And your dough should be nice and warm. From that warm water. And because our dough was kind of dry, I didn't need to put the olive oil onto my hands. Because it's not sticking. So what I did was poured a little bit of the oil onto my hands because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to place our dough into our pan. And what we're going to do is we're going to press our dough out into our pan. You don't have to have a pan as big as the one that I have. You actually can use one that's smaller, but I always like to go bigger rather than smaller. So now what we're going to do is we are going to, let me show you what I'm working with right now before we go any further. I'm gonna bring you in. So this is what our dough looks like in our pan right now. And what we're going to do is we're going to make dimples. And making those dimples, you're just using your fingers and you're pressing down into the dough. And then what we're going to do with those dimples is we are then going to pour our olive oil into those dimples. And then our herbs. So what I have here is a mixture of oregano and basil, and I'm going to sprinkle that over our focaccia. You can actually use, I'm using my dried herbs, but you can actually use fresh herbs. And then you are going to sprinkle a little bit of your coarse salt over the top, or your rock salt. Once you do that, then you're going to cover your focaccia, and you're going to let it rise for 3 hours, okay? So I'll be back with you in 3 hours, and we'll see where we're at with our focaccia, and then we'll get our chicken and rice soup cooking away, because remember, most of our items are already pre-cooked. So in the time it takes for our focaccia to cook in the oven, we will have our chicken and rice soup all cooked away. See you soon. All right, guys, it has been a little while and we are back. We are ready to finish up our focaccia as well as our dinner. So I'm going to preheat our oven to 350 degrees so that we can get our focaccia cooking. Right now, I am going to take it out of the oven where I had it proofing. As you can see, I had it covered with a couple of towels as well as some plastic wrap. So I'm pulling that out of the oven. We're going to put our oven on 350 degrees. And what we're going to do is we are going to cook our focaccia at 350 degrees for 30 minutes. And while that is cooking, we are going to be cooking our soup as well. So guys, I just took our focaccia out of the oven. It has proofed. I'm going to bring it over so you can see it. I removed the towels that I had on it as well as the plastic wrap. It is nice and soft, and of course everything is all warm. The herbs have rehydrated just a little bit by being in the warm environment with the oils and all the moisture, because everything was covered. So what we're going to do is begin to place everything in our quick cooker to get our soup started. So what we are going to start with, we are going to place our quick cooker on the sear setting. We're going to press start, and what that does is it gets our quick cooker heated up. And again, all of our ingredients, our chicken is already cooked. Our vegetables are fresh vegetables that have been frozen, so they do not take a long time to cook. So everything in the time that it takes for our focaccia to bake in the oven, our soup will be ready, everything will be ready at the same time. So as soon as our oven beeps telling us that everything is up to temperature, then we'll be good and ready. So while this heat up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and drop my vegetables in. Let me get a spatula. So again, for this, I'm using spring onions, corn, potatoes, and zucchini. I want you to use whatever vegetables that you have going on in your garden, whatever vegetables that you've harvested from your garden, because again, we're garden to table. So, you know, what we're doing is learning how to use what we have. And in using what we have, we're able to save money. We are able to get a very good meal. So why not do it? So you can hear this is heating up. Our oven is coming up to temperature. It's not completely to where we want it to be at as of yet, but as soon as it comes to 350 degrees, we're going to place our focaccia inside, and I'm going to put everything else inside. So what I'm going to do with my better than bouillon, I'm going to place it inside of my water, just kind of stirring a little bit. Kind of giving it a head start in getting all mixed up. And again, if you have chicken stock that you have canned, or you have fresh chicken stock that you made over the holidays, please feel free to use that. Because better than bouillon is shelf stable, I enjoy buying it, and it has always worked out very well in all of my recipes. I have been using it for years. I know when I was growing up, my mom used to use those bouillon cubes, and sometimes they could be a little bit more salty than they were flavorful. So as we advance in things, we learn what we like and what we don't like. So also what I'm going to do is, I have a full packet of my rice mixture here. I'm going to stir in at least half of my rice mixture. I'm not going to use the whole thing because again, it's just me that's going to be eating this. Because the moment you say vegetables, my kids are out. Every now and again, there are specific vegetables they like greens. They love collard greens. They love cabbage. They really enjoy corn. But as far as like some of the other things that me and my husband enjoy, zucchini, mushrooms, especially mushrooms, they can't stand mushrooms. I don't even think any of them ever tasted a mushroom, but they declare that they don't like them. And I love to cook with carrots as well. I don't have any more in the freezer, but I'm going to pull some out of my garden soon. Some will be ready. I'm going to get them, wash them up, and prepare them to be frozen. But they'll eat carrots raw. So our timer just went off. Our temperature timer just went off. So our oven is at 350 degrees. So what we're going to do is get our focaccia placed inside. We're going to set our timer for 30 minutes, but at the 25-minute mark, we're going to come back and we're going to check it. And so now we are going to place the rest of our ingredients into our quick cooker for our soup. Get everything stirred up. I'm going to bring you over so that you can see what we're working with right now before we change our temperature. So this is what our soup is looking like right now. So what we are going to do is we're going to put the lid on our quick cooker and we're going to change our timer. So right now we have it on the sear setting. But we're going to cancel the sear setting. We're going to place our lid on top. We're going to put it on the chicken poultry setting, which is 15 minutes. And we're going to press start. And what we're going to do is we are going to let it, what it's doing is getting itself up to pressure. And once it gets up to pressure, the red gauge will pop up. That's the safety feature of the Pampered Chef Quick Cooker. And once that safety gauge pops up, that lets you know that you can no longer open this lid. It will not allow you to open the lid. And so we have our steam valve pointing in the same direction as our pressure button, and we're going to let that go for 15 minutes while we let our focaccia go for the 30 minutes, and we'll be back.